Hello, Wargamers, and I am here today coming at you after the release of the latest Games Workshop Big FAQ. And we are going to take a quick look over it. As with always with these sort of things, I am not an expert on every single army, so I do tend to focus on the broad picture, the overall stuff that has been changed in the FAQ. And I will take a quick look at some of the things that caught my eye on this one. So we're going to keep this quick, probably around 20-25 minutes type thing. So if you're just looking for a quick opinion on what's going on, what some of the ramifications might be of this big FAQ, or whether or not it is a big FAQ you to the community, be sure to check out this video. And as always, guys, leave some comments below. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're thinking. If you disagree with me, I want to hear from you. If you don't like it, I want to hear from you as well. You don't necessarily have to hit that like button, but I would love to know why, because I am always looking to improve content. So, let us jump into the Warhammer Big FAQ number 2 for the year of 2018 and what it might mean going forward for Warhammer 40k as both a casual and
so we got the
competitive
preamble
game.
out of the way, and
Let's go take a look.
like I said in the introduction, we're just going to be focusing on some of the larger elements of the big FAQ, and I'm going to be taking a look at anything that I feel I have enough experience with to address it. So, not going to be going over every various codex and whatnot, because I don't have enough personal experience. So we're keeping this broad. So we're going to start off with the with basically the beta rules that came in with the Big FAQ 1. So that was the element of the Battle Brothers and being able to create soup armies. Now the soup armies are still around, but they've basically finalized the details that they need to have a keyword in common beyond the big 5 ones, so beyond Chaos, Imperium, Eldari, Ynnari, Tyranids. I mean, we knew this one was coming, so it has that effect, but because they've been in beta rules for so long, I feel that for the most part, everyone has gotten used to these options. So this is not really a big thing. I have seen some concerns and complaints regarding how it interacts with Inquisition. Now, I want to read over that a little bit more myself. I still am holding out for an Agents of the Imperium book that is going to fix all that. Fingers crossed. Now, whether or not we actually see it, who knows? But so yeah, we saw that one coming. The other thing that we saw coming up was the changes to psychic focus. So once again, this is something we all knew was coming. This is, for the most part, a good change. I do feel that it does hurt a couple psychic-based armies a little bit. And basically, any army that is running sort of the baby smite, the one that is just a straight-up one mortal wound, sure, they can throw as many out there without the increasing difficulty, but smite itself is almost a non-factor at that point. To be honest, I would almost prefer, like for instance, my Grey Knights, I would almost prefer that they get the regular smite and the increasing difficulty cast to it, because at least that way, I feel like I'm putting some wounds on there. But for the most part, again, we knew that was coming. And then the targeting of characters, basically just solidifying how you can target characters, how many wounds they need to be under in order to target them, and then just other targeting criteria. So these were all the matched play rules, the beta rules that they brought in spring. We knew they were coming. They're here. They're enshrined at this point. So thankfully we got a good chance to get used to them. So with that, we are gonna move on. So we also got ourselves a new set of beta matched rules as well. And once again, I'm actually really liking what I'm seeing with both of these. I'm going to touch on the big hot button one first, and that is the use of command point regeneration. Anyone who is vaguely familiar with the competitive scene of 40k is probably aware of the popular notion, and I just read this term myself, of the loyal 32 guardsmen. The idea of you're bringing in this sort of like minimum sized battalion of guard that are granting you 5 command points. You have your 2 relic, you have your 1 relic, and you have the warlord trait that allow you to just keep regaining command points. even on like, the rolls of 5+ and I think 6+ and whatnot. But the whole idea is that basically, whenever command points are being spent on either side of the table, all of a sudden you're getting this chance to regain command points. And it was not uncommon for people to be receiving more command points than what they started off with. And given the potency of command points and stratagems in this edition, that was a massive benefit to any Imperial army that could take advantage of it. And quite frankly, for the cost, any Imperial army could. So they have gotten in here and they've basically said that that your command points, you can only ever regain one command point a battle round. And you know what? It's a simple solution to it. I know a lot of people were throwing out different ideas on the best way to sort of combat this, to change it. Some people were arguing that you can only use command points for the faction that generates them, or stratagem. Other people were saying that the command points shouldn't be a big solid pool and it should be a pool for every individual faction. Some people were saying that it shouldn't be done at all. So there was lots of different discussion on it, and for the most part, I don't think there was one really solid right answer. And I wouldn't even say that this is the one right answer, because it does have an effect on some armies that might not be as potent. I've seen a lot of people sort of complaining and lamenting about the Tallyman being a little bit worse now. But the whole idea is this reins in those command points a little bit more. It's not going to remove the Loyal 32, but I think we're going to start seeing a slight decrease in it, possibly. People are going to start thinking a little bit more about how their armies function, because they're not going to be able to bank on getting 2 times the normal amount of command points, 3 times the normal amount of command points. They're now in a position where they have to realistically look at their army composition and to make the determination: do they have enough command points, with only the possibility of regaining 6 command points over that. So like it's whatever your base command points is plus battle round, so maybe plus 12, 6 or 12. I'd have to double check the wording on the battle round. I think battle round is the full round, so I think 6, but it does limit that, and as a result it does limit sort of the cavalier nature that you can spend, that you can burn through some of these command points, which is really good, especially considering that these were being used as a battery for some things that were just absolutely devastating and very likely not designed to have access to that many command points. Like Night Titans, as a good case in point, Custodes, another good case in point. Like any army that is sort of like low model, high firepower, low model, high toughness type thing, they're not designed to have that amount of command points. Their internal balance, regardless of how you want to say Games Workshop beta tests anything like this, these things internally were not meant to have that level of utility, which is why the command points were structured the way they are. Now, I'm not saying that there's no room for tweaking and modifications, but that's just kind of the reality of the thing. These things were designed to have sort of a soft cap on these resources. So this is frankly an excellent change. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are upset about it. A lot of people who are going to have to review their lists. But I think for the health of the game, for the longevity of the game, this is a very good change. So the other new beta matched rule is a new 2 CP stratagem, and I absolutely love this one. It is the prepared positions. This thing is great because basically, as long as you're not a Titanic or you don't have the Titanic keyword on the first turn, on the first battle round before the first turn begins, you can basically use prepared positions, and this is for the person who has the second turn in the battle round, and grant everything basically +1 cover. And this is absolutely amazing. Like they can't achieve additional cover bonuses if they're already in cover, but the sheer fact that you now have a little bit of protection for turn 1 against shooting, I think this is I think this is a great way of balancing out the change to the tactical reserves. I think this is going to give some of the smaller elite armies a little bit more of a leg up, just because it now means that you have a little bit more durability going into your own first turn. You're not going to be losing as much. Now, my only concern with this one is, again, we go back to the elite armies, which aren't going to be playing with a lot of command points to begin with. That is a rather substantial amount of your available resources right off the bat, just for a little bit of survivability. So, obviously, you still want to try and deploy intelligently. You still want to take advantage of cover when you can. But it now gives you a couple more options. It also gives you some methods to protect some of your tanks as well. Because obviously being able to give a +1 to your saves to any vehicles out in the open just helps them. It gives you a little bit more staying power, and I think it does work towards balancing out the potential Alpha Strike possibilities here. Whether or not it's a perfect fix for it, obviously it's not. I mean, 2 CP, it's an expensive stratagem to use. It's not foolproof. I think you can bank on it helping and preserving more of your forces, but it's definitely not something that's going to make you want to go second. You're still definitely going to have to make some calls on that one, but it's just a nice little bit of extra protection to get you through to that second turn and keep you engaged in the game. And right now, I think that's one of the most important elements that the company is looking at, is keeping everyone involved in the game for at least a couple turns here. So the other one we're going to talk to, and this was also one of the beta rules, but it looks like it's staying in beta right now, and there is an awful lot of discussion on this one, and this is how the tactical reserves go. So, as everyone remembers, we came into 8th edition, and all of a sudden they opened the door for anything that could deep strike in, anything that could do reserve thing. You could just do it. You could deep strike in 9 inches away from an enemy, or more than 9 inches away from an enemy unit, and you could do it on turn 1. And this opened the door for a ton of turn 1 Alpha Strike builds. You had some armies that I feel relies on it a little heavily, almost out of necessity. But then you had some armies that were able to just take advantage of it beyond belief. So they've gone back in here. They've made a couple other changes. Basically, what they've done is they've set back the clock to a time before 8th edition, in which you only start deploying your deep strike, your tactical reserves on turn 2. So no more of this turn 1 in your own deployment zone stuff. It is turn 2. And turn 3, and anything beyond turn 3, they actually just count as being destroyed. I have to say, as much as this affects one of my own armies that I really enjoy playing, I think this might be the right move on this one. I do feel that it brings us back to a time when there was a little bit more control over it, where there was actually a sort of a game of benefit versus cost to deploying this way. And you now run the risk of some of your stuff being shot off the table. You run the risk of potentially being tabled because you don't have some of these key units. So I think this is good. I think we have to have those sort of tactical decisions being made. Sure, it hurts a couple armies. Like they made some changes to various things like Raven Guard, Alpha Legion, the Mechanicus Digis 8. I believe there was the Webway for Craft Worlds, and then the Incarn, I believe it was. So they made some changes to that, where that basically they get sort of a vanguard move, a scout move type thing, where they can move up 9 inches, whereas it used to be a lot more potent than that. And again, very good change. I know a lot of people are kind of railing at the utility of it all. You also have a lot of people like myself who are kind of embracing it. But I think for the health of the game, this was a change that needed to happen. It needed to be done, and for the most part, I believe it is the right change. We're gonna have to start looking at our armies a little bit more tactically. We're gonna have to start making those decisions. I know some people are making the argument that it really favors gun lines. And I think in this particular case that becomes a whole other argument, but we are also going to touch on the gun lines again in a little bit. But yeah, so that's what's going on with the tactical reserves. So those are kind of the biggest changes to the game with the big FAQ. It's not everything, but it is certainly some really important factors in there. There were a couple other small little things that they touched on. They cleared up quite a few bit of rulings. There was a perpetual argument whether or not a vehicle or unit had to fire off every single weapon, including single shot weapons, that whenever they fire. And they cleared that one up basically to say single shot weapons were the choice of the owner, which really good. So you can't force them to fire off all these one shot weapons anymore, which really good. That was kind of silly that was a discussion that even needed to be had. But again, this is Games Workshop. It's always good to get some clarifications. They also discussed the element of the 0-inch charge for units with fly. And this one seems to be generating a lot of discussion. Because as it was, the way the fly keyword interacted with everything else was you basically didn't care about vertical movement. You just cared about horizontal movement, which meant that you could jump up buildings, you could jump over units, all this sort of stuff. And it created some interesting interactions. Some interesting tactical options as well, like being able to charge over an intervening unit, for instance. Games Workshop has basically stepped in and they have made a ruling on this one, where when you're assaulting, you measure the distance, point A to point B. Doesn't matter if they're 6 inches up, doesn't matter if they're on the level ground. You measure point A to point B. And this actually has a couple big impacts. One of the biggest ones is on any units with fly that are assaulting. So I think Captain Slamguinness for the Blood Angels is being hit with this one. You can no longer basically charge over an intervening unit. You got to take out that chaff in front of you. And I thought about this for a little while, and I have to admit I'm very much on board with this change. Simply because it actually, again, involves tactical decision making. If you want to be able to charge that unit that's entrenched with chaff, then you got to take out the chaff, or you have to accept that your Captain Slamguinness or whoever is going to have to clear it out themselves. Which is really good, because Captain Slamguinness, while he wasn't like tournament defining, he was definitely a meta upset, and he had some issues attached to him. So I think this is generally a good change. I think people are going to be salty about it, and they're going to have to get used to it. But generally speaking, I like it. It's good. They also cleared up some of the wording on when heroic interventions can be done. Basically, at the end of an opponent's charge phase, you can declare one even if they're not within range. Excellent, fine. And then the other one, this one caught my eye. How important it was, I'm not entirely sure, but there was the notion of being able to give your Ogryns and Bullgryns a 2++, so a 2-up invulnerable save, through the use of various shenanigans like cover and Saint Celestine and whatnot. They've come in and they've basically put some restrictions on there for the slab shields, where it does not improve invulnerable saves. Again, it's more just an interesting note. I don't think this was a huge game-breaking issue. It was a pain in the rear, and it was a thorn in the side for people. But I don't think it was this issue that was really that problematic. But I like that they're looking outside of just what the really big issues are. So seeing that happen, I'm on board with that change as well. So yeah, so that's some of the other changes. So next up, I'm just gonna chat about my own personal thoughts on the FAQ and how it affected my armies. So how did it affect my armies? Well, I got nothing. Yeah. So my own personal armies, Grey Knights, Sisters of Battle, those are my two primaries. Grey Knights got nothing in the FAQ this time around. Sisters of Battle got nothing. Now, at least with them, it's because we're going to be getting the chapter approved beta rules in December, and hopefully a new book sometime in 2019. But it's a little upsetting that I haven't seen anything really addressing some of the inherent issues with the Grey Knights. The Custodes are basically Grey Knights on steroids. They do everything they can do but better, except for psychic abilities. They're tougher, they hit harder, they really embody the whole elite army thing. I would have liked to see a couple changes, like maybe some considerations given for Grey Knight's historical deep strike tactical decisions, like dropping in on turn 1 and whatnot. But this is where we're at in the game right now. I will keep playing them for the time being, even if they're not hyper competitive. I just probably will not be bringing them to very many competitive events as a result. But again, such is life. So in general, so I guess just to conclude, it's great that we're seeing Games Workshop put these FAQs out there. It's great to see them actively working with the community. Now, whether or not you agree with the changes or you agree with the sort of community influencers is going to be up to you. But I think the point is that we are coming out of the woods here. We have a company that's willing to work with everyone, willing to work with the community. Like, they're still going to have to make their own unilateral decisions because this is their product. This is their IP. But we're seeing interaction, we're seeing engagement, we're seeing discussion, and that's important. That's huge, especially as we shift over to the concept of the living rulebook. The fact that we've now seen 2 large FAQs plus chapter approved since 8th edition has come out it's an excellent sign that we're working towards making the game work. Now, of course, 40k is never going to be a truly balanced game. There's just too many factors involved with it to make it 100% balanced. But it does mean that we're going to try and get it as close to it as we can within reason. Some people are going to be happy, some people aren't going to be happy, but as long as we keep working towards the final end game of an enjoyable game that can be played casually, played competitively, that's where we're at here. So I do got to give some props to Games Workshop on this one. Now, of course, people are always going to take this all with some salt, but you know what? That happens every single time any sort of change or shakeup happens to a game that we love and that we're passionate about. So there we go. That is my thoughts on the big changes, on a couple little changes that caught my eye. So that is the big FAQ. So now we're just waiting for chapter approved this holiday season. I know I'm looking forward to it for various reasons. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you saw things a little bit differently. If you didn't like the video, let me know in the comments below. You don't have to give that thumbs up, but if you choose not to, I would love to know why, because I'm always looking to improve these things. And of course, you can always check out other avenues of social media. Hit me up on Facebook at Aegisbrand Studios or Painting by Leland Martel. Instagram, same thing. I love to hear from you. I love to see your stuff. And be sure to hit that subscribe button for more content in the future. And as always, happy wargaming.